So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to our presenters, Lori Slayton and Ann Savino with TWC, and give me just a moment and I'll pull up their slides.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Texas AEL PD System webinar. My name is Lori Slayton. I'm with the Texas Workforce Commission Department of Adult Education and Literacy. And joining me today is my colleague Ann Savino here. She's the guru of all things AEL, so we want to be sure and include her here with these initiatives that we're going to talk about. We're going to go ahead and turn off our cameras so that we can preserve bandwidth. We just wanted to say hi to everybody, and we'll get going. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at three what we call special initiatives in AEL. So I'm going to ask you to place a yes or no in the chat if you know what a special initiative is, or sometimes we refer to them as our state leadership projects. If you kind of know what those things are, let us just say yes in the chat or no in the chat. Just try to gauge really kind of where you guys are coming from with your information. I have no. Okay, good, because I'm going to tell you. I just didn't want to be redundant. So of our total AEL allocation for the state every year, we're required to use a percentage of that funding for special initiatives. And more specifically, we're required to provide professional development with these initiatives. So these are programs that support and enhance the AEL service provision overall, but usually have a very specific goal. One of our initiatives that you might be familiar with is our Accelerate Texas grants. Those are special initiatives, which are currently in the awarding stage right now for the new ATX grants. Their guiding purpose is the provision of integrated education and training programs. So you see how there's kind of a narrow focus. Another initiative that you're probably familiar with is the TCAL PD Center, which is also funded with these set-aside funds. In our AEL rules, the provision of professional development is a requirement, and we have historically provided that through our grant with TCAL. This year, we've done something different, and we've added 2 additional professional development centers, each with a very specific focus. So we're going to talk about those. Next slide, please. So the traditional PD Center is now called the statewide PD Center. And the primary duties of this initiative have not changed. Your PD Center will still be your PD Center. We're just calling it the statewide PD Center so we can differentiate it from the 2 new kids on the block, who are the Career Pathways Professional Development Center and the Distance Education PD Center. And we're going to speak to these initiatives both individually and how they collaborate during this session. This is a high-level overview of the new PD system. But for a deeper dive into this system, there will be a session at the Fall Institute hosted by TCAL in Region 6 on Wednesday, September 1st at 9:30. So there will be more information coming out on this. We just wanted to kind of let you in on the state perspective, and then it'll get kind of weedy from there. So we're trying not to go into the weeds, but if y'all ask a bunch of questions, we're happy to go there. And the next slide, please. Oh, and by the way, you have a question, pop it in the chat. Don't hesitate to interrupt. We're happy to address questions as we go. Okay, so for the Texas AEL PD system, the statewide PD Center is considered like a home base. Previously just known as the PD Center because it was the only center that we had in AEL, right? It provided all of our PD services. The statewide center is not decreasing its services with these new centers coming on board, but has actually expanded a bit to facilitate the collaboration between the centers. So that's kind of why we think of it as a home base. It's gonna host a lot of the collaboration with these other two centers. Next slide, please. So you can go ahead and click on those, Beth, and call them all up. There you go. Thank you. This is the largest of the PD Center awards. The statewide PD Center grant is $2.5 million. It's on a 12-month cycle that just began June 2021 and runs through May 31st of 2022. And then during the spring of 2022, the center is always evaluated for performance, and then it's recommended or not for an annual review. So far, every year we have renewed the TCAL PD Center, and then we just re-procured it this year. There are 4 optional 1-year renewals because by law, we can't go past 5-year grants without recompeting. So we did go through our 5 years. We just re-procured, and TCAL did win the grant award again this year. Next slide, please. This is what we call a purpose statement, and this one is directly from the request for application. The purpose statement for this PD Center takes up 2 slides because it has a lot of information. The purpose statement is designed to kind of encapsulate the overarching goals of the initiative. So the purpose of this request for applications is to maintain an AEL statewide professional development center that delivers PD strategies and technical assistance to all Texas AEL providers and stakeholders so that they, meaning the providers, may provide comprehensive service delivery to AEL participants. So that sentence alone is enough to design an initiative around, but it's only part of what gets done here, but it's a big sentence. Think about that. They are going to deliver PD strategies and TA to all Texas AEL providers and stakeholders so that the providers can go forth and deliver services to our participants. That's a lot of work. The statewide PDC will use data-driven PD services, and then we'll implement those developed services through a structure of PD institutes. And you'll recognize the institutes from the TCAL webpage because that's exactly what's on the TCAL webpage. So this is not new information. This is what we had in the previous grant for the statewide PD Center. But there's more. The statewide PD Center will also provide direct, routine, and concentrated support to AEL providers. We'll talk about this a little bit more when we get to the staffing of the PD Center. But this is a big part of what the PD Center is responsible for. And then we can go to the next slide, please. Okay. I know this looks like a lot. The statewide PD Center will be responsible for managing or coordinating the following: activities and administration, including responsibilities related to admin and staffing requirements, event planning for statewide, regional, or local conference or business events. So yeah, every time we have a conference, such as, the TWC annual conference, the TWC forum, the AEL Fall Institute, Literacy Texas annual conference, the Taylor pre-conference, all of these things are coordinated with and by the statewide PD Center. It's a lot of stuff. And when we do a series of road shows, which if you'll remember pre-COVID, we did that pretty frequently. So when we did regional trainings, they're also coordinated by the statewide PD Center. This initiative is also responsible for an annual research project and activities that evaluate the PD effectiveness across the state. That's another big piece. Then there's also the actual development and dissemination of professional development curriculum that is then utilized by the AEL providers, nonprofit AEL providers, TWC staff, and a bunch of others. The statewide assessment, the statewide center is responsible for remote resources, meaning they manage a slew of listservs that we use to manage, that we use to communicate every day with the field. We have listservs for PD coordinators, for directors +1, for distance learning leads. We keep track of all of that so we can communicate with the field. And then the development and maintenance of the Texas AEL contract trainer database, including recruitment, assessment, and management of contracted PD trainers, and then management of the famous 1-800-44-READ information hotline, which we've had forever and ever, and still gets widely used. And the population and management of the Texas AEL PD portal, our learning management system. There's a lot of work in that paragraph, but we, again, in the purpose statement, we try to encapsulate as much as possible about what we want these centers to do, what the intent is. So here again, I'm gonna ask you to place a yes or no in the chat. How many of you are familiar with the contract trainer database and what that is? Yes, Octaviano knows, Tiffany Lee, all good. I'm glad y'all know what the contract trainer database is because it's a very important tool. For those of you that have never used the contract trainer database, it's full of qualified and vetted trainers on all kinds of PD topics. Just know that if you have a topic or a session that you would like to be presented to your staff, you can search on the TCall homepage on the top right. It's highlighted. It says find a trainer. If you don't know about the trainers or who you'd like to have as a trainer, reach out to your assigned PD specialist. Remember the ones we said that provided direct routine support from TCall, and they can make a recommendation and work with you on getting that session scheduled. We want you to get the PD that you need and want. And that's a big tool we use to assure that. I'm sure you're all familiar with the PD portal. This is a huge undertaking in itself. And the responsibility here is to develop and then populate the portal with online and face-to-face curriculum to track and retain all of the PD hours issued statewide, to develop and train on PD portal reports, that are used by the PD coordinators for each provider, and much, much more. We currently have 2 dedicated PD portal staff, and that's a big reflection on the part that the portal plays in our AEL lives in professional development. And the very last little statement, other responsibilities within the scope of work of this solicitation as approved by TWC, and other AEL information resources as needed. Now that's a big, wide, vague statement, isn't it? And it's sort of equated to the other duties as assigned that you get in your professional report that you do. You may be wondering why the purpose statement does not specifically mention collaboration with the other 2 PD centers, but you have to take into consideration that all 3 of the RFAs we're talking about today were being written and posted at roughly the same time. The statewide was the first one, but we had no idea when we first started drafting these purpose statements and the guidelines. We didn't know whether the other 2 centers would even really persist into existence. Because they didn't exist at the time we were drafting this RFA. So we couldn't indicate they needed to collaborate with an unexisting entity, right? So other duties as assigned is going to pick up that big collaboration piece and falls into that last sentence. And so that's our purpose statement. That's a lot of information. Do we have any questions at this point about the statewide PDC? We're going to talk a little bit more about staffing and deliverables, but this looks like a good place to see if we have any questions. I don't see any questions in the chat. Anne's going to man the chat for me while I'm reading, and then I'll do the same for her while she's reading. So
I'm here and I'm looking at it, and so far no questions, but we're
all right, great. Okay, so next slide, please. This looks like a long list, doesn't it? In the purpose slide, we saw that all of these services are to be provided to AEL providers and stakeholders. This is a list that's directly from the request for applications. It's a very comprehensive list of folks eligible to receive PD services from the statewide PD center. And the reason I say it that way is because it is different for the other centers who's eligible to receive services. So here we have a variety of entities that the center's responsible for providing services to. The primary focus historically has been our AEL funded providers, our core grantees, as we call them. However, they also provide services to like the Literacy Texas initiative for the community and faith-based AEL providers throughout the year by providing professional development sessions and access to the PD portal. We are currently working with Wyndham School District to also provide access to the PD portal to more than 800 of their staff. So we have the licensing, and we want to be able to share all of both the unique and the collaborative items and courses that we have in the PD portal with these other folks. So we're working through that process right now. Access to the PD portal includes access to all of our professional development curriculum. And right now, today, that means there's 183 online courses and 189 face-to-face training options. So that's a lot of professional development. So that's a valuable commodity, and we want to be able to share that with these folks. All the people on this list are eligible to receive these services, and TCAL does a fantastic job of making sure that all the PD needs are met throughout Texas. It's a big lift, and they do it every year. And we continue to work with more stakeholders as the need arises, or as another initiative comes up. If we get a request from our commissioners, all kinds of things impact who we serve and kind of the degree to which we serve them. And then our next slide. So for TCAL, the managing director, Deb Hargrove, and PD services director, Beth Ponder, lead this amazing group of people, which also includes a PD field services manager, 7 PD specialists that work directly with assigned AEL providers, a tech PD specialist, a PD logistics manager, a PD portal coordinator, a website and graphic designer, business office staff, administrative staff, and 2 student workers. There's 23 full-time staff employed by the statewide PD center. And to say that this group does a lot of work is a gross understatement. They've been the only group providing PD across the state for the past 8 years when AEL was transferred from TEA over to TWC. Okay, I see our slides are off.
Sorry about that. This is Beth, and my computer just decided to close the PowerPoint. So give me just a second and I'll get us back to the right spot. There we go.
Not a problem.
Okay, can you see it okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
We'll just call that a quick refresher on what I've said so far. So just out of curiosity, how many of you have been with AEL since it did migrate over from TEA? That was in 2013. I've been with AEL since 2014, but I'm always amazed at the people that have been here 20 and 30 years in AEL because it's their passion. Yeah, I see lots of people chiming in that they have been here since we transferred over. And I say kudos to all of you. You do a fantastic job and we appreciate your work. Jan Bartlett is new. Welcome, Jan. And look at this, 22 years, 31 years. Yeah, it always amazes me how much work you all do every year for our students. And so just note that it is appreciated from the state level. And then next slide, please. So what does the statewide PD Center do? I'm not going to go through all their deliverables because they have a huge deliverables chart. And so far you've seen that the statewide PD Center is responsible for a whole host of things. I just want to take a second to point out a few of their deliverables that I consider to be of paramount importance because they inform our PD trajectory for the year. First, there's the statewide continuous improvement plan, or CIP. We get one for the whole state, and it's developed every year based on a number of things, which include survey results, a whole lot of Teams AEL program data, other data, which might include information from our federal partners at the Department of Ed, the Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education, OCTAE, regarding adult education nationally, our own Texas labor market and career information, and direction from TWC. That's a lot of information to gather and then develop a continuous improvement plan. This information is gathered throughout the year, and it produces really succinct guidance for us as a state through the CIP as a plan to move forward and provide the professional development that we need and that is needed to best assist our providers, who in turn are assisting our students. So the statewide CIP is like an overarching plan that outlines our areas of focus for the year. And TCAL does this every year. It's a big deal, and it informs a lot of our movement with professional development every year. The next item is another continuous improvement plan, but it's for each AEL funded provider, what we call our core providers. This CIP is developed between the locally assigned PD coordinator, remember we have 7 of those, or local assigned PD coordinator, and then the TCAL PD specialists, of which we have 7. And utilizes all kinds of data, the same data in some cases, but it's data that's specific to that particular program. And they develop PD recommendations for each AEL provider. And it's a plan for the year to schedule professional development for local program staff. So the program CIP is developed every fall with a revision every spring. We do this once the program year is underway, and then we reassess to take into consideration any new policy, any program changes, anything that might affect our PD is contained in the plan and then revised. So it's like an ongoing cycle of development. So we are striving to keep on top of what it is our AEL providers need from professional development. And it changes a lot. So yeah, and Krista pointed out that the provider's CIP is known as the PD plan. Yes, we just call it the PD plan. Do we have any questions so far? Y'all gonna make this easy on me.
We don't have any questions, Lori.
Okay.
You're doing good.
Great. Okay, so two more very important deliverables and I say important, they're very important. The first one is to provide ongoing implementation of the Texas AEL content standards. And we're currently rolling out version 3.0, most of you know, and introducing the family and civics standards to the rest of our standards. That has been a year-long process that TCAL has facilitated very well. We're currently rolling out training on the civics and family standards, and there are also sessions at the Fall Institute on the new standards. You can request that training, or you can work with your local PD coordinator and have them request the training. The content standards are really the very basis of our instruction here in Texas. The statewide PD Center is entrusted with ensuring that the standards are being continuously implemented across the state, specifically using the instructional coaching model. If you are unsure what I'm talking about, we'll have a separate discussion about this after the call, because everybody should know what the content standards are and how important they are. Yeah, and Anne Marie, who just put a comment in the chat, it was significantly important in the development and rolling out of these standards. Thank you, Anne Marie. The second item here is the annual implementation of the Texas Designed Leadership Excellence Academy. And when I say Texas Designed, I mean that very sincerely. We started with an initial Leadership Excellence Academy and totally revised it over a period of a couple of years to get to what we have right now, which will last about 9 months. And we're going to be recruiting for 2 new cohorts that are slated to start in October. We have 2 Leadership Excellence Academies. We have one that is designed specifically for administrators and one that is designed specifically for instructors. So that also is a very big lift. We have these ongoing projects. I've just mentioned these 2, but we have several. And then we have a bi-weekly call where we review the progress of these projects every other week, because there are so many and because they're so intensive. It's just, we're at a very good place with our PD. We're very proud of our statewide PD center, and we look forward to how it's going to interact with these 2 new centers. So on the next slide, you'll see these are the people you want to contact if you have any questions about the statewide center. They can be either directed to Deborah Hargrove or myself. And we're usually very responsive. If you have questions, we'll get back to you really quickly. So don't hesitate if you do have questions. And that's kind of my high level look at the statewide PDC. So from here, we're going to move on to Anne and the Career Pathways Professional Development Center.
Great, and we have a nice reveal there of the Career Pathway PD Center. And thank you, Lori. This is actually the first time Lori and I have put this presentation together, as you can imagine, because these centers are new and we're really rolling out this statewide approach to professional development. So I'm glad you all are here to join us. I'm going to turn my camera off and just save a little bandwidth, hopefully, and move on forward. So this slide, this is actually the announcement of our Educational Service Center Region 6. We, AKA known as Region 6, has received the award for the Career Pathway PD Center. And so welcome aboard. We're glad to have them. Next slide. They just began work on this project in July. They were awarded July 1st, 2021. They are following a similar timeline as our statewide center and will have a year period for which we will also be evaluating performance and then recommending or not annual renewal. So upon annual renewal, they will continue with another $750,000 to expand services. So just as with the statewide PDC, there are 4 optional one-year renewals, at which point the law does require we post for reprocurement. So as you can see, there's a lot of connectivity as we go through this. The procurement for the Career Pathway PD Center was really thought out to be a very collaborative project with our existing and hopefully to be procured centers, so that we would have an integrated approach to PD across the state. So for the overall goal and intent of this center, I'm really providing a very high level here, but ultimately the objective is to provide a focused, concentrated, sustained PD to all AEL grant recipients and the Texas workforce system to support implementation and expansion of quality career pathway models that serve priority populations. So I'm saying and emphasizing quality, primarily because we know in our system, we have been deploying career pathway models for over 6 years now. And we're really in a movement towards improving the quality of these services.
Yes, can you go to the next slide? I think we're a slide behind.
Actually, I think we're okay. So let's see, next slide. You can go to the next slide. Oh, sorry. Overall goal, where are we? Detailed purpose. Okay, back to the purpose. We are, this is to create a PD center that's going to improve integration across our WIOA titles. That was one of the other important purposes. I've kind of high-leveled the overall purpose and detail from what was in the project proposal, the solicitation. So we are really working to bring to you more quality services to help you implement your career pathway models and also provide some cross-training for stakeholder groups. Lori talked about that in reference to the statewide center, also working with all of our stakeholders. That will also be true of our career pathway PD center. And I think you all know who implement career pathways know how important it is, the partnership aspect of career pathways. Next slide. So this is just more language on the mechanisms for this system. The Career Pathway Center will use research and evidence-based practices for planning services and provide for implementing quality. And once again, I'm really emphasizing the quality model. We want to see more results of student success. We want an improvement in system alignment. And of course, for our providers in our state, improvement in performance outcomes. So over the last 5 years, more research-based studies are occurring. We're going to be hearing more about those because both at the federal level, these services, or rather studies, are occurring and being published. And then, of course, the sharing of evidence-based practices are increasing also. Next slide. Okay, staffing. Let's talk a little bit about staffing. And of course, the PD Center is only 6 weeks in. I'm very glad they have their full-time 100% project manager. That's Trey Daniel. He'll be presenting with the statewide center at the Fall Institute. So you'll hear more details about all this. But right now, they are required to have a full-time project manager, a full-time training coordinator and instructional designer. And then they will also be hiring career pathway PD specialists that will pretty much parallel the kinds of activities that our statewide center does, but will have a focus for assisting providers with their career pathway models. So that's ongoing, and you shall keep your eyes out for these positions as they are announced. Next slide. So this slide really looks at who the customers are. And you all in the audience today, I'm so glad to see you here. And you are our primary customer because you are the staff, the people on the front lines deploying these models. So the customers for the Career Pathway Center are directors, the staffing, their case managers, advisors, career navigators. They will also be supporting our Accelerate Texas and other state leadership initiatives, should some come on that are applicable to career pathways. And then on the employer piece, and you can hit the next button. Employers are a customer as workplace literacy is an increasing way AEL providers work to serve participants. They work in collaboration with business and industry. All of our models, particularly our integration, education, and training, really can't be done without employer and other stakeholder partners. So employers are a very important customer for a system. And then next. And then, of course, other stakeholders, and they are throughout all of these entities. So when we talk about TWC, we talk about our system partners, we talk about our workforce boards, we talk about career and technical education across post-secondary institutes of higher ed and others. And these partners are very important in the design of your integrated education and training models. And the Career Pathway PD Center will be working to bring these stakeholders together. Next slide. So as Lori said, coordination was really a very important piece of actually rolling out this system and rolling out this system over the next few years. So to ensure that the state of Texas is building a comprehensive model for PD that makes available AEL, PD for AEL providers. It's accessible to grantees, it's accessible to stakeholders. All of our PD centers as part of this network will coordinate and collaborate. So each PD center will first coordinate with our office and then with each other on a regular timeline. So we're really seeking to build a system that serves the needs of our stakeholders. So there are three ways that you'll see this evidenced over the course of the first year. First, the contract trainer database, and I'm glad Lori talked in depth about that. And also I noticed there were lots of people on the call that weren't familiar with it and many that were. But that trainer database, as the Career Pathway PD Center will work with Train PD to review the available trainers on career pathway topics, to help update that system, to bring new trainers into it, and update the process for adding contract trainers to the database over time. So this is actually going to help us effectively spread out quality models across the system, the more we have effective trainers in the system. So this is a really important piece, and I'm glad that we'll be doing a lot of work on the contract trainer database. I think you've already got the next slide up. So that's the LMS. Lori talked also about the LMS. The statewide center has very effectively deployed the learning management system. It's working very well for our provider network, and the Career Pathway PD Center will work with that system through, again, coordination with Train PD, with the statewide center. They will, using that system, also manage participant data, enrollment, and training offered for PD credit. So we anticipate that this is going to be a seamless process, and it'll be well integrated into the way the system now works for everybody that's using the system. We're not building silos, but rather the goal is a real seamless system for you, our customer. So next slide. Oh, actually, stay right there. Actually, I didn't talk about the business events. Let me go back there. because this is actually another just bringing in the Career Pathway PD Center. It's a third way that the PD Center will coordinate with the statewide center. And it's really to be part of our statewide business events, supporting our office on the topic of career pathways at those events. They will help us identify and secure qualified trainers and collaboration for any of our business events that might bring in the topic of career pathways. So y'all are used to seeing some pre-conference events such as what's occurring during the Fall Institute or has occurred at Pre-Taily Conference, where we brought in the career navigators, we brought in directors together, provided best practices around working with skilled immigrants or providing intensive services for corrections, workplace literacy, et cetera. Those have all been very well facilitated and guided with the help of trained PD over the last 6 years. And they have been taken on and by trained PD to help us execute those on a statewide level. So first, kudos to trained PD for all the responsiveness to make these events happen. You know, behind the scenes, there are extraordinary efforts going on to support the Fall Institute, keep the trains moving on these statewide events, such as the Institutes or our Pre-Taily Conference. They're posting materials, coordinating schedules, no easy task. So we hope that you, our customers, are navigating registration without having to think about what's behind the scenes. With the Career Pathway PD Center, they will also be providing subject matter expertise and will be the primary for carrying the water and planning those events, but in collaboration with our office and in coordination with trained PD. So this is a holistic system that's got a lot of moving parts, but we are anticipating it's going to work effectively together. Next slide. So just another note about those statewide events. We're really looking at just a seamless process occurring, connecting follow-up evaluations and analyzing those events and looking at the impact on implementation. So just know that the processes you have in place now with your PD plans will really be mirrored and supported with the career pathway work that's going to be done under the Career Pathway Center. Next slide. And this is just really a refresher for those of you that may be new in our system. And I did see a few people that had been new, that are new in adult education. These are the topics that are anticipated to be addressed over the duration of the contract. Career pathways in Texas under AEL include integrated education and training models. These models require partnerships in the community to be effective. Go ahead and click. Integrated EL civics models. These are really specializing in serving those who are English language learners. So a very important aspect of our service models, because the primary population we serve are English language learners. Then our specialized, click again please, our specialized intensive service models, as we call them. These include services to internationally trained professionals and those individuals with degrees from their home country. I'm gonna mention the Skilled Immigrant Project a little bit later, because Train PD has been a strong support for that work over the last year, and previously we have been developing a lot of materials for the internationally trained English language learner professionals, and you will hear about that at the Fall Institute. So look for those sessions. We really appreciate the support that Train PD's been bringing to that effort. And then, of course, next, corrections and reentry. I'm going to mention something that Veronica Moore and I are doing from our office. She and I have been part of a national pilot project on integrating integrated education and training in corrections services. So this is a federal project organized by OCTAE to the Office of Career and Technical and Adult Education to better support both corrections and integrated education and training. So we're participating in this year-long project. We've been able to invite Region 6 to join us. And that will bring increased professional development on this topic to Texas. So we're glad to have Region 6 on those events with us. And finally, and not at all last on the list, again, our employers, they're involved in all the successful implementation of our career pathway models and are included as a entity under our intensive services as workplace literacy models and our employer engagement work. So just as a refresher, that's what this slide is. This is the career pathway of services in adult ed in Texas. So for those of you that are new, this is kind of the umbrella of activity, the AEL activities around career pathways. So next slide. And this actually is just an emphasis, and sorry, you can go back one briefly. I'll just mention that Region 6 is looking at focusing on our integrated EL civics as a primary topic for institutes this year to help in better supporting implementation of these models. This is a priority for us in terms of serving English language learners, and we know our primary customer is an English language learner that's seeking better opportunities, more occupation and employable skills. So I think you'll see this rolled out this year as one of the main efforts that's coming out of our Career Pathway PD Center. Next slide. Okay, quality. This is really a quick look at the circle around building this quality model for the Career Pathway PD Center. First, Region 6 will be doing a statewide needs assessment coordinated through our office with our provider network. That's going to help us figure out what you identify as your needs and what we should do to better support you. And next, we'll be providing support for PD and TA at the business meetings, as I talked about. And then next, we'll deploy institutes and on-demand PD through the existing PD portal. Lots of activity that's going on there now. We will be working with our new PD center to develop modules that will be placed in the portal for on-demand use for all these, or for a portion of these topics under the Career Pathway umbrella. And then next, we'll launch this year an academy, and the identified area that Region 6 is looking to focus on, and it really is an exciting area to bring forward as an academy, would be our workforce system partnerships. Academies are usually multi-month, as Lori described, and the Career Pathway PD Center will follow that same model and structure that also as a application-based academy process. So next. One of the other tasks that's on their to-do list is to work with our office on some quality review tools. There are a few that have been released nationally, and we've been really digging into them. I've been looking at them in depth, and I'll be working with Region 6 on finalizing and creating this tool that will be of use to you all over the coming time. And then next, please. Then the career, continuous improvement plans. You all already have in place a process for looking at your PD and how you improve services. So we'll be integrating with that process, still to be determined in a way that hopefully is seamless and well integrated with the work that you're doing, but a deeper dive into what's happening in your career pathways and the kinds of improvement that you need, or the kind of PD you need to help you improve those models. So we're going to work with Region 6 on rolling these out statewide. And then over this year, we will, for a small group of providers, go in a little bit deeper with specific career pathway improvement plans. This is their first year. They're getting on their feet and getting staffed. So we are gradually rolling out more and more depth on providing or working with our providers to support their plans for career pathways. So you'll see that grow over the course of time. A lot of work, and I know that they're anxious to get out of the gate. So next slide. And this is just another visual on the Academy. Look for that upcoming over the course of this year or in early winter. Next slide. And then in general, just professional learning. You know, the institutes that exist when you go to the Train PD website will continue to live there as resource sites, but the Region 6 will be updating and enhancing those resources for you, both on the Train PD website or in coordination with Train PD, and developing the professional learning opportunities for you all across the state. So I am delighted to give you this overview, this top level view, and I know that they're going to be diving in more deep as they get their staff hired and present at the Fall Institute. Next slide. And here's the final contact information. If you want to reach out to Trey, Trey is the project manager. He's been on board and running since July 1st, and I know has a lot of work planned and is diving in to open all of these opportunities for y'all. From our perspective at TWC, you can contact me if you need anything about the Career Pathway PD Center or you're interested in any more details. Trey and I are working closely together, and I'll be the key contact for them at TWC for Career Pathways. So I think that's it. How'd I do on time, Lori? Whoops, about 10.
That's okay. If y'all remember, name that tune. I'm going to say I can do those slides in 5 minutes.
Thank you.
So, okay, we're at the last of our initiatives. And as we saw in our very first slides, this award for the Distance Education PD Center has also been awarded to TCAL after a full and open competition that began last winter and was awarded June 1st of this year. Next slide, please. So the Distance Education PDC, we're just going to say DEPDC, award is for $1 million. But this award is a little bit different. It's for an 18-month period. And if you're wondering why the different timeline, when we began the process of developing this initiative, we realized that full implementation may take longer than 1 year, at least initially. So the timeline for the DEPDC is June 1 through December 31st, 2022. And after that, we'll decide if we want to do renewals in 18-month increments or 1 year increments. But we did want to give this center enough time to kind of get up on its feet and get going. It also includes the optional renewals as long as it doesn't exceed 5 years, at which point it must be recompeted. We also thought it might be a good idea to kind of stagger the start and renewal dates of these initiatives so that we're not trying to stand up the centers at the exact same time and then having renewals, deliverables, closeouts, all due at the same time. So we staggered them a little bit. And let's look at some language from the request for proposals. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm gonna have to read fast. So once again, we have managed to pack an awful lot of activity into one purpose statement, and I can tell you that's an art form into itself. Ann and I have gotten very good at putting a bunch of information in a few sentences. So the purpose of this initiative is to create a statewide distance education professional development center that will deliver distance education and remote learning training, technical assistance, and capacity building services for AEL grantees and students. So let's stop here and unpack this a little bit because there's a ton of information in that first sentence. The intent of the DEPDC is to cover all aspects of distance education. This includes the approval and maintenance of the distance learning approved curriculum list, which currently hosts 34 different DL vendors and applications, and more requesting approval in Texas all the time. It would also include training all of the staff on those applications so that they could then assist AEL staff and students on how to properly use the apps and record those proxy hours. So why do I keep saying and students like that, right? Does anybody know? You quickly place it in the chat if you know the answer to why I keep stressing and students. The answer is because this is the first time that one of our PD centers will have direct interaction with students. It's a big deal. The first sentence also includes all remote learning training. What does that mean? It means technical assistant staff will also be trained in using Zoom, Google Meet, Remind, etc., all of the apps that we use to conduct remote instruction, and then also assisting both staff and students in the use of those apps. So we took this idea from something we developed as a pandemic response, which was the instructor-led help desk, which was manned by volunteers who were considered subject matter experts on any one of those curricula, and they assisted AEL staff in using the approved applications. I was going to ask if we have any questions, but if you do, just pop them in the chat. For the sake of time, I'm going to keep going. The DEPDC will be providing both PD and technical assistance to AEL grantees. So what's the difference? Why do we say there's a difference? If you look it up on Google, professional development is a set of tools, resources, and training sessions for educators to improve their teaching quality and effectiveness. Technical assistance is a form of consulting and can be contrasted with PD, which of course is, as we just said, designed to teach, present, or guide individuals in order to assist their skills and competencies as instructors. That's what PD is. Technical assistance is consultation, something that we already know the answers to. We just want to help you also know that answer. So the DEPDC is designed to do both, but only technical assistance is provided to the students. This is to assist them in facilitating their Zoom classroom, communicating with their instructors using apps, and to help them with using approved distance learning curriculum. Both PD and TA will be provided to the grantees. So let's note an important difference between the statewide and the DEPDC, and that is who is eligible to receive services. Remember, in the statewide, we had that long list of eligible entities, and here it is only for direct AEL grantees and eligible AEL students. Those are our recipients. The center will also provide capacity building activities that will help increase the number of students and grantees participating in distance education and remote learning. And next slide, please. So staffing, let's talk a little bit about staffing. The DEPDC will have a full-time project manager, a full-time assistant project manager, full-time administrative staff, and up to 12 dedicated call center technicians. That's a lot of staff for this center, but it's going to take all of them to implement what we've asked of the DEPDC. So let's go ahead and move on, and I'll try to get through the next two slides as quickly as possible. So as we've discussed, the DEPDC has two very important branches. This slide reflects the technical assistance branch. And yes, call center, that's right. We're implementing a call center to disseminate technical assistance to grantees and students. Above are some of the facts about how the call center will operate. It'll be available in English and Spanish, and then any other language that we come across where somebody needs help, we have a service that can assist us with assisting them. So regardless of what language they speak, we're going to help them out. all call center staff will be trained in the use of those 34 curricula we spoke about earlier, as well as commonly used apps for classroom instruction. We've learned in the past year a lot about those online apps we can use for instruction, right? We know that a large number of instructors really struggle to get their classrooms online and then actually facilitate and communicate with their students the way that they want to in the past 17 months or so. So we wanted to provide assistance to them to mitigate those barriers to having online successful classrooms. There's going to be a ton of training for those TA staff. I can tell you right now, as I stated earlier, the Technical Assistance Call Center is available to all AEL staff and their students. The operational hours are going to be from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. each and every day, including weekends. The exaggerated hours kind of reflect the needs for the services, as well as being available to students who we know their study hours are before work, after work, between two jobs, between dropping off the kids and picking them up, or on the weekends. We want to make sure we're available to assist. If you're familiar with another initiative we have, the Math Assistance Call Center, this Technical Assistance Call Center will operate much in the same way. We'll be utilizing an online whiteboard to assist if we need to. In their proposal, TCall stated that they would serve a minimum of 1,000 technical assistance participants in the first year. The Technical Assistance Call Center is anticipated to open very soon this fall. So if we say starting in October, they're only going to have 9 months to serve those first 1,000 students, because that would be within the first year of operation. But we know we can do it. We're not concerned. Plenty of need for this service, and we're just thrilled that we're able to provide it. So TCall has a fantastic implementation plan for this initiative and is hiring staff as we speak. So you can learn more about the PD system at the presentation at the Fall Institute. Next slide, please. This is about the professional development branch of the center. And note that the available working hours are different and not on the extended schedule for the Technical Assistance Center. But remember, PD is the training of skills and knowledge to increase instructional performance. And technical assistance is the imparting of guidance or advice to work through a particular issue. So we didn't feel it was necessary to have those expanded hours, but we're always open to changing that if we find the need is there. So next is one major deliverable for the DEPDC, which is the needs assessment that you heard Ann speak about. There's also one for the statewide PDC. You can find this activity in all three of the centers. This is designed so that all of our products and services are rooted in evidence-based data. In this case, we want to identify gaps across the state in distance education and remote learning and address those gaps. So we want to carefully analyze those gaps and develop a plan that will best address how to fill those gaps, how we can best be of assistance to the field in AEL. Both the statewide and CPPDC about contributing additional trainers to the contract trainer database. That will also be a large focus here. We want to contribute additional trainers to the database that are SMEs in these subjects. So we often recruit trainers from those identified as subject matter experts in a particular area, whether nominated by a grantee, suggested by another trainer, or self-nominated. Regardless of where they come through, all trainers have to go through an already developed vetting process to ensure PD instructor effectiveness. So right now we have very few DE and RL subject matter experts in the contract trainer database. So we're really looking forward to bolstering that number so that we can effectively serve all areas of Texas, right, in these subjects. Another major undertaking is taking existing training, courses that are already in the PD portal, and updating them to be the most current, to reflect the most current information that's on the market and reflecting the most research that's available. It also entails designing and developing new content that'll be made available through the portal as either face-to-face or online PD sessions. For about a year and a half now, the statewide PD Center has facilitated monthly webinars for the distance learning leads from each of the AEL grantees. These have proven to be very successful gatherings for promoting strong, successful distance learning practices. And there's also an existing community of practice for the distance learning leads. These will be taken over and built upon by the DEPDC. So they're going to take those, embrace them, and build them out with a strong future focus on digital literacy at the local program level. The DEPDC will also be taking over the annual Distance Learning and Technology Integration Symposium that I believe is in year 4, held each spring, usually in May. Currently, the distance learning leads will also meet at the pre-conference to the Fall Institute, and that session will be hosted by the Distance Education Professional Development Center. They will also host a minimum of 2 training of trainer events related to distance education and remote learning. And the goal here is that capacity building. We want to build capacity among the AEL staff in these subject areas. And we also use TOTs to recruit subject matter experts that complete the training. So I know that's really quick, but that's what I have so far. Go on to the next slide, please. We're almost done. So what about collaboration between these 3 centers? You know, initially, we're meeting bi-weekly to share information on the projects, the steps that have been taken, and evaluation of activities that are both already occurring and those activities planned for the future. As you can imagine, with these huge centers, planning is a big part of this system. Since TCAL will be hosting and sharing the statewide events calendar and incorporates events from all 3 centers, as well as the PD portal, the contract trainer database, each center has a role in the collaboration and in contributing to those activities. The intent is to ensure no duplication of effort, right? We want to share and not recreate. I already mentioned the DLTI symposium on the last slide that we do each spring, currently slated to be in San Antonio at the end of next May. More information to come on that. In the next section, it states, in this next little section, it states that we anticipate at least a 5% increase in the number of participants utilizing DE and RL options. I've already been asked why that number seems to be low. First, this is truly a pilot project. We've never done this before, right? So we really don't know what to expect. And we don't have information from the field really about numbers on who's doing what. So if we find that most of our participants are already utilizing these options, then getting a 5% increase is a big deal. If we find that there are large gaps where people are not utilizing these services, getting 5% should be fairly easy. So we'll know after the needs assessment really where we need to focus that. And one last slide. This is just a slide to show our collaboration to communicate within and without the system, to make available content via state channels, to integrate information for dissemination, to participate in all statewide events, and to facilitate delivery of new content. So that's kind of an overarching goal for all of the centers. And so the last slide for the DEPDC, this is contact information for Deb Hargrove and myself, and for the CPPDC for Ann and Trey, if you need that contact information. And I apologize, we went 11 minutes over. We're just very excited about these initiatives. And this is our first chance to share the information. So I will turn on my camera and tell you, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time and attention. And that's all we have. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Anne and Lori.